got a chance to do one thing that every team in the country can't do. We got a chance to step up, man. We got a chance to step on the ledge, you know what I mean? And to me, I think it's a free fall. To be elite, you got to take a free fall. That means you can't be afraid to go to the edge. And coach said, jump. You said, how far, coach? Where you want me to go? Every guy got a chance to do that today. If you're elite, grab somebody today. Take it with you. There's no more average in this program. There's no more average in this program.
After a disappointing 3-9, Pat Narduzzi brings his squad a little bit revamped off of last year's team, and they're going to have some changes to have success in 2024. Hi, everybody. I am Colin Baschnagel here, the host of Bash's College Football Show. You can find me on TikTok here, where I make all of these videos and have responses to comments and all that stuff over on TikTok, Bash's CFB Show. It'll be linked down in the description, along with my Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Or you can find my Twitch down there as well if you want to come into the live streams where I tape these recordings. In this video, we talk about the Pittsburgh Panthers, who are just absolutely coming off of a disastrous year, a couple of years removed from a big or ACC championship game, and that they won with the Kenny Pickett year. That was a lot of fun. Kenny Pickett being a Heisman finalist, and they ended up going to a big-time bowl game. And, yeah, they were a fun team to watch then. Well, now you get a Pittsburgh team that's coming off the heels of 3-9. Are they going to be able to get back that success they found a couple years ago with Kenny Pickett and that offense? Well, you got to talk about some of the things that they lost as we go into this Pittsburgh breakdown and just talk about some key contributors to that team last year that did struggle, that they're going to be losing, they're going to have to replace, and are they going to be able to replace them with some talent? You're going to have to start with talking about the guys who graduated or moved on to the NFL. And a guy that graduated, and definitely not an NFL player, and a lot of Pitt fans, much maligned quarterback. I thought he had a lot of potential. It did not show up, though, at the end of the day. It's Phil Dracovic. Phil Dracovic leaves, and really it's going to be TJ Yarnell's job 100%. He played a good bit last year, but it was supposed to be Phil Dracovic's job last year, and he did not take the reins. You also have that top wide receiver, Bob Means, leaving, and the top offensive lineman, Matt. I lost my train of thought there. Matt Goncalves, who was their top tackle last year, and he is gone. And then you get two cornerbacks leaving, and MJ Devonshire and AJ Woods. So how are you going to replace those key pieces there? And then how are you going to replace some transfer portal guys? You lost a couple of big-time players on the defensive side of the ball, a couple to Colorado and Deion Hayes, and also Samuel Okunlola. Losing those guys to Colorado and Deion Sanders, your two most productive defensive linemen that have left from last year's team. You also lost a couple of other guys, DeAndre Jules, and then finally, not finally, but Bongali Kamara rounds up really the key losses in that front seven that they're going to have to replace. He's going off to South Carolina. Both those guys going off to South Carolina. And joining them down in South Carolina is also going to be a safety, but I think they're fine at safety in Buddy Mack. Now, we talk about being fine at safety as we talk about the players returning. You start with this defense. What are they going to be able to replace? Well, it's basically those back two guys in Javon McIntyre and Donovan McMillan. I think both of these players are really good. McMillan specifically is an absolute stud, but losing a lot in the front seven, how is Pat Narduzzi going to be able to revamp that? You have seen Pat Narduzzi, number one, be able to rebuild a defense over at Pittsburgh, and number two, be able to win in spite of a pretty mediocre defense at Pittsburgh. We've seen that happen before too while he's been there. On the offensive side, a couple of key weapons come back. Rodney Hammond Jr. comes back, and then two pass catchers in Kanata Mumfield and Gavin Bartholomew. And also a guy to watch out for that I really like the film of, Kenny Johnson, a young wide receiver, a true sophomore, showed up as a freshman and had good moments. You also had offensive lineman Branson Taylor. He's coming back. That's definitely big after you lose Goncalves on the other side of the offensive line with that tackle position. Transferring in for the future, this is really good. They get Eli Holstein, a high recruit from Alabama, and really only in his second year. So you can look at that as he basically got beat out by Dylan Lonergan. But you can also look at it as that's a potential to develop him behind TJ Yarnell and find yourself with a good quarterback room in the future. And Cade Bell is going to work with that quarterback room. as he comes in for his first year as the offensive coordinator out of Western Carolina. And who he brought with him is Western Carolina's running back, Desmond Reed, who I think is an absolute stud. He's got all the athleticism in the world, all the tools to be a successful running back. I'm not sure if he's ready for Power 5 football, but he doesn't need to take the brunt of the carries, considering that they do have some depth at running back, with Hammond being the bell back, basically, the guy who's going to get the majority of the carries. Then you get wide receiver Raphael Williams and tight end Jake Overman coming in from the West Coast. San Diego State for Williams, Oregon State for Overman. And then you get interior offensive lineman Lyndon Cooper coming in from NC State. On the defensive side, you're going to have to replace some of that defensive line, and they addressed it with some depth type of players. You had Matlick from Kansas State and Ojegbe from Clemson, two guys that I think are going to try to compete to be in that rotation, in that two deep for this Pitt team. And then also Nick Jones coming in from Indiana, I think is definitely going to be a guy that pushes for some playing time as well. In the secondary, you help with some depth with Taman Lynham coming in from Nebraska and safety Jeremiah England Jr. coming in from Kentucky. So overall with this roster, I think that there's a lot of good pieces coming back, specifically on offense. I think they're going to be a whole lot better, and this is going to be a really good test for Cade Bell, who had a great potent offense at Western Carolina last year. And it's going to be a good chance for this young offensive coordinator, Cade Bell, to be able to prove himself at the big-time level of Power 4 football. So we're going to get straight into the schedule predictions for the Pittsburgh Panthers, and here we go. We're going to get straight into it with a win against Kent State before playing a couple of rivals in Cincinnati and West Virginia. Now, Kent State's not very good. You don't have to worry about this being an upset alert, but I talked about Cincinnati. I think that they're going to be a pretty good team, and it's all up to Scott Satterfield and not messing it up for them to be able to go bowling this year. Now, I think Cincinnati's going to be better specifically early in the year for the Pittsburgh Panthers, and I think West Virginia as well early in the year is going to be better. This is going to be a home game, though. It is going to be all the Pittsburgh royalty and loyals and all of their diehard fans are going to be there for that game because that is a heck of a rivalry. And I'm glad we have the backyard brawl back, but I think it goes in the direction of West Virginia yet again, just like it did a year ago. So overall, I know Pitt fans are not going to be happy with that, but I think they're going to go into conference play with some confidence after they beat Youngstown State, get a bye, and then play North Carolina on the road, who I think is going to have a big struggle of a season this year. I think Mac Brown is a little bit in over his head. I think Max Johnson could be a good quarterback, but they're having to replace a lot of production, a lot of really good quality production specifically. I think California is going to be a really tough game for Pitt, but they're coming across the country to play you in a pretty tough spot. I really like the young quarterback from last year, Fernando Mendoza, who played really well. And, of course, Jaden Knott is there. I think California is going to be a pretty decent team in the ACC. But having to travel across country, play a Pittsburgh team, I think this front seven could be susceptible, and they might be soft up front to a big game by Jaden Knott. But I think this offense can go strike for strike with California and beat them in the end. So I think Pitt rips off a 3-game win streak after losing those 2 out-of-conference games in a row. But the win streak continues here as they come off of the bye. I think they beat Syracuse at home on a Thursday night, another game that I think is going to be really good. I think that Syracuse is going to be a solid team. They're going to have a pretty solid offense, a good, hard-coached defense, and Fran Brown is a heck of a coach. But again, off of a bye, extra time to prepare, extra time specifically for Pat Narduzzi's defense to really get up to par for this game. I think Pitt wins this game. I think they win at SMU. Look, one of the bigger weaknesses that Pitt is going to have is up front on defense, but SMU is losing a ton when it comes to the offensive line, losing guys to the transfer portal left and right. I think SMU is going to be a dangerous team. I think they're going to be a solid team in the ACC, but I think Pitt wins this football game on the road with a long week to prepare and having their weakness coincide with SMU's biggest weakness on the offensive side. And I think Pitt's offense is going to be able to get it done in Dallas. I do think they come back, and this kind of seems backwards to a lot of people. I think they come back and lose to Virginia at home. I think that Anthony Calandria is going to be playing better later in the year. They return a lot, and that experience is going to keep on piling up. I don't think Virginia is going to be a great team, And I'm not sure if I buy what Tony Elliott has to offer over there at Virginia. But if Virginia is going to peak, it is going to be in November. And I think you could see Virginia pull off an upset or two in the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season. I think this is one of them. I'm going with the Virginia Cavaliers to pull off an upset against Pitt. Now, up to this point, too, if you just look at their record, they start 1-2, but now they're 4-2. Going into that game, they could be 6-2 and ranked in the top 25 when Virginia pulls that upset off. And I think it just goes downhill from there. They play a Clemson team. They're just more talented. I know that Pat Narduzzi has given Clemson some problems. They beat them twice in the last several years. I don't care. I think Clemson comes into town, and I think they win that game. I do think they go to Louisville, though. Again, kind of backwards for a lot of you. I think they do go into Louisville and win. I am not high on Louisville. I'm not the biggest Tyler Shuck fan. I think he's just a pretty average, mediocre quarterback, but so is Jake Plummer, right? But when you're talking about what Louisville has around the quarterback compared to what they had last year, they had a much better defense last year and much better skill position players last year. I think that Colin Lacey is going to be a great receiver for them. But outside of that, like, they lost a ton in the transfer portal. They have a lack of stability with their NIL. And I know Jeff Brom is a great coach, but he is just as frustrated as anybody. It's not just about coaching. You also have to have the Jimmies and the Joes. At Boston College, though, I am pretty relatively high on Boston College. I did the Boston College video. If you want to go and check that out, I got Boston College winning that football game. So the Pittsburgh Panthers are going to end up going 7-5 with a 5-3 record in conference, which is very respectable, especially going 6-2 to a point. Like, I think this Pitt team is going to have a little bit of a turnaround, and I really like the schedule for them. It's not a great start to the schedule with the out-of-conference schedule with 2 tough games at Cincinnati and West Virginia. But I think as they ease into conference play, playing at North Carolina, who I think is going to be down, playing California, who's going to be coming in through a tough trip, playing Syracuse off of a bye at home, I think that this schedule sets up perfectly for Pitt to continue on getting better and better, but then tapering off at the end of the year. So with that all being said, that is my Pittsburgh Panther prediction. Thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know down in the comment section below if you disagree with me about Pitt, if you think they're going to be way worse just like they were last year, or if you think they're going to take a massive leap forward here under Pat Narduzzi. But thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Like the video, please, and I'll see you guys next time.